Welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Jessica and today we're going to be talking about how I took my dream and created a rough draft of an actual book. And then I was like, what if there was a world like that? To go thrifting as my character, you need to find a vessel to carry your message. And that page after page after page. Oh, that's an awesome scene. Is this getting weird? Am I being nasty? So, lost forever. So today I'm going to be talking about my process of getting my book dream, that scene, that quote, that just idea in your head into an actual rough draft of a novel. Again, this is how I do things. I'm not saying that's going to work for everyone. I'm just sharing because I feel like it could help someone. And it's kind of encouraging to me, the fact that I actually managed to get a rough draft written, because I have been wanting to write a book for ages and ages and ages. So yeah. I want to clarify that this video is not me procrastinating writing, because I am currently on a break from my writing just until the end of the year. I'm planning to upload this video on Christmas Day. I think that dreaming is something you can do at any time, especially during the holidays when you've got all your friends and family. Like, you don't have to be writing necessarily, but if you're gonna give up your dreams every time that there is a holiday or a function or your friends come over or anything like that, you're not gonna go anywhere. And I think that sounds a lot harsher than I meant it to sound, but the fact of the matter is, we're just trying to get the dreams to become a reality, right? And I think the best way to start doing that is to take that dream and start dreaming with it. Honestly, that's the first step. With my current book, what I started with was a photo. Whoever remembers back in the day when WhatsApp used to let you download profile photos instead of refusing to let you even screenshot them? Anyone remember that? I do. And someone posted on their, it was before status even, they posted and said, I need to get the phrasing right, I'll put it up here. It's like something like, in my ideal world, reading makes you skinny and books are free. So I kind of just really liked that quote. I was like, that works for me. I could totally live in a world like that. And then I was like, what if there was a world like that? And that's kind of where my current book started. Its beginning phases was this one singular quote that I saw years ago, and then I just put together a story based on it. So how that kind of happened was I just started dreaming with it. I was like, okay, what would that world look like? How would that world function? And you can do this with literally anything. I think that's my main tip. My first tip would be, take whatever inspires you and let it grow, if that makes sense. Like, let's say you see a phrase. Albert Einstein once said that creativity is intelligence having fun. So you can take that phrase and you start dreaming on it and you start to think, okay, what does that mean? How can you make that into something? Like, you really want to bring this phrase across? No problem. You can totally do that. You need to find a vessel to carry your message, and that is all that a book is. It's a vessel to carry a message. And whatever message you have inside of you is that's what you're going to be bringing out to the front. So the next sort of step after you've got your phrase or your enjoyable, like your little quote or your aesthetic or your scene or your character, I'll give you an example that's literally not in my book. I'm going to grab it quickly. Hang on. Okay, so I had this scene come to my mind at some point. It was literally, at some point I was just thinking, and this thing kind of popped into my head. It was basically, I'll put it up here, so you can read it for those of you who are visual, but it's like, why can't I date him? There's nothing wrong with him, Jason. And then he answers, because I said no. You're not my brother. I know that. You don't think I know that? Well, stop acting like one. I'm not. All I'm saying is you can't go out with him. Why not? Because you have freckles on your nose. She blinked, not sure how to respond. Freckles? Yeah. And you know the names of every constellation in our hemisphere. He palmed the back of his neck. You can sing opera in Italian. You prefer Russian, you hate Greek food. Okay, so I break these things because I like them and they make me go, love that. And yeah, slightly embarrassing, but I've decided to be open about that. The point that I'm trying to come across with this particular quote is that's not a whole book. In fact, that is literally not an opening scene. That is nowhere the beginning of a book. That is a friends to lovers, enemies to lovers angst scene that happens probably 2/3 the way into a book. That's what that is, okay? But I take that and I start dreaming with it. I start working on it. I start growing it, and I'm like, I put it on a notes app, or I take out a piece of paper, whatever works best for you. And you just start writing it, and that's phase 2. You take that idea, that concept, something that's in your brain, and you start to see, okay, how can I get Jason and whatever her name is into the scene? What would need to happen? What does the relationship need to look like? And from there, you start to build. You start to build on that. You start to think, okay, it's got to be brother's best friend kind of vibe. So she needs a brother. What are her family dynamics like? What is her current occupation? Is she a student? Is she not studying? Why is it that Jason is acting like the big brother? Is it because her brother died, or is it because her brother decided to go away to college and she's still in school? Or what is the dynamic that needs to happen for this scene to come to place? What is the world that needs to be created for this scene to make sense? And once you've got that, you move on to phase 3. Okay, so phase 3 is where a lot of people would go onto Pinterest and start making a mood board. Now, I have absolutely no problem with that. It's just actually not really my vibe, honestly. I love Pinterest. I have many boards, but most of them have to do with like writing and editing tips, and they're basically screen grabs of Twitter. And I do have some aesthetic boards, I absolutely do. But when I'm making a book, I feel like that falls secondarily for me. Like, it's not a number one thing that I do. What I like to do is I start adding scenes. So I'll just like randomly write, like, for instance with this Jason, and call her Catherine because like I need a name for her, so she's gonna be Catherine. So Catherine and Jason, and let's just take that. Then I will think about her brother, and I'll be like, okay, well, clearly she needs to have some sibling dynamic with him. I'm thinking they're like inseparable, but at the same time they're always picking on each other. Like, nobody would dare to pick on her when he's around, and vice versa. But the thing is, when they're just the two of them, or even when they're like in a group setting, they're always ripping each other. They're always like completely roasting each other. Like, that's the kind of dynamic that I want. Then I'll just start creating a scene like that. Or I will, you know, for my current book, I did a painting. Like, I just whipped out a painting for like a cover design of my book, which will probably not be the cover in the end. I'll probably release it at some point as like a fan cover. I don't know what to do with it, but like, it's just to sit there and remind me that I'm writing this book. You could, something that I want to do really badly is to go thrifting as my character and like create an outfit inspired by my character, like my female lead, right? Like that's kind of something that I want to do. Like, you can do things like that. Make it fun, make it interesting, engage with your characters, and engage with the story. That takes us to phase 4. I do think it's 4. Anyways, so phase whatever it is, I think it's 4. You take out the writing paper. This is the hard part. This is the hard part, okay? I'll show you what I did with mine. So this is, again, my current part that I did is I did outline brainstorm, is what I called it. Now, no spoilers, but this thing is like 7 pages long. Of course, it's best if you can get a single paragraph, this is what my book is. But when I start to actually figure out what my book is about, then I start to really write. Like, I'll be writing page after page after page. You saw in my first video, I was busy with it. That was the thing that I was doing in my first video, was actually writing these out and creating a storyline from what I had thought of. So it's 7 pages long. And this is the blueprint that I worked from. So from there, because I really like to write by hand, because that's where my creativity flows the most, I make it really hard for myself, but it does give me an advantage. Because once I've written it by hand, I type it into my computer from this. And as I'm doing that, I'm expanding on it. I'm expanding ideas, I am creating more sense of the thing. This is just like the literal basics. And then I'll put in more ideas, I'll put in more facts, I'll put in more development. And like, this is not the book. This is not what I've written for the book. This is my outline. So from there, I'll show you what I do with it later. In the meantime, I will do things like create a scene from my book. If it comes to me, I'm like, oh, that's an awesome scene. I'll just like create a scene. Like randomly, somewhere in the middle of the book, there is this action scene that's happening. I will write the whole thing down and I will put it on a piece of paper, or I'll put it in my laptop and I'll wait until I get to that scene and then I'll put it into the story. Like, that's how it goes. And then I have like bits and pieces, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Anyways, so the next thing that I do once I've typed it out is I print it out. Now this, I consider this a vital step, honestly and truly, I do. Because as I'm printing it out, I read through it again and I fill in what I want to happen sort of in the margins. Like, I'll put a giant question mark, like, why is this here? Or I'll be like, okay, right in front of him, or motives, or like I will make it make more sense by adding information into the margins. Like, you can see there's a lot of information that I've just sort of shoved into there because it didn't make sense without it. Like, this page is like basically just annotated. So once that's done, I have my basic plot. Not as basic as basic is, but basic enough. So then I can move into phase 5. Phase 5 is, again, work, but it is very fun for me to do this. It's where I take these things that I've now, again, edited from when I printed it out, edited it, and I start chopping it up. I cut it into sort of bite-sized paragraph pieces that kind of are where my chapter breaks are going to be. So I start breaking this, what's this, hang on, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pages, which became more when I edited it. I take those 5 pages and I split it up into however many chapters feels right. I won't come in with the idea that I'm going to have 80 chapters, forgive me, 20. I come in with the idea that I'm going to read it, and as soon as it feels like it needs to change chapters or it needs to change perspective, chapter break. So in that method, I actually turned these 5 pages into 42 chapters for my current book. And it will depend on what you want to do. Do you want to have dual POV? Do you want to have a single POV? What person do you want to write it in? Do you want to write it from the I, me perspective, or from the she, them perspective? Like, you got to kind of figure it out at this point. Like, you don't have to at this point if you don't want to, but what I wanted to do is I wanted to have dual POV, and I wanted to switch every chapter. So I have 42 chapters, as I've mentioned before, and that just sort of worked out perfectly. So I knew I wanted to start from his perspective and then switch to her perspective. Yes, it is a romance. How could I ever write anything that's not? So I wanted to do that. That was like really important to me. So I just sort of did that, and I marked which chapter was which POV, and at the end of that, I had a blueprint ready for me to just write, which is phase 6. If you've been watching for a while, you've seen my productive day in life with me's. I have done a lot of writing, and that was basically what I was doing here. I took the blueprint, and each chapter heading, maybe if you take the example of Jason and Catherine, then you have the first scene is her at her brother's rugby game, and he is winning, and she sees his friend give him a really hard smack on the shoulder, because guys do that sometimes, and he stumbles, and she thinks, yeah, of course it would be Jason who does that. They've been besties since whatever. Like, let's say that's what you want to write, then what I would have potentially as my blueprint paragraph from which I'm working to create that chapter would be like, okay, she goes to his rugby game, best friend introduced, she doesn't have the highest opinion of him, doesn't have a really low opinion of him, thinks he's really hot, realizes that the other girls like him a lot, and is not specifically jealous, but really likes that her brother has a good friend like this. Let's say. just as an example. And then from that I expand it, and I write the internal monologue, I write the action, I write the dialogue, and I get like a 3 or 4 page A4 chapter from this one little paragraph where I just said what I wanted to have in that chapter. And I think that that really works well for me, because if I had to write everything out at once from just like a little outline like I was taught how to do in school, where you just kind of have like a single line to tell you what's going on, I cannot do that. I have tried, I have failed, I was miserable. This works for me. It is way longer to create this kind of like a blueprint outline, but I don't think I'm the only one who does it. You could probably check that out. But yeah, it works so much better for me to do this. And at this point, as I'm going through it, I'm picking up the scenes that I already wrote. You could be going through your Pinterest board and like just reminding yourself, what do these characters want, what do they do not want, what do they like, what's their aesthetic. And I really just think that you can really expand on those things so that you can create a book. And so phase 6 is the lost phase. It is the lost phase between a dream that became a rough draft. And this rough draft, honestly, it took hours to write this rough draft. So I just found a way that worked for me, and that's why I'm sharing it with you guys right now. I found a way that works for me, and hopefully it helps you in some way. I had a friend who asked me at some point how, like, she said that she knows the beginning of her novel and she knows the end of the novel, and she doesn't know what to put in between. And I think this is kind of partly just an answer to that. That's how I get from the beginning to the end, is I kind of just fill in what makes sense to create that ending. If you know your characters well enough, you'll just sort of follow their plot. But I don't know my characters well enough, so I had to make up a plot, which is kind of sad. Not gonna lie. Also, bonus tip, I just want to say, while I was writing, I had this exquisite chapter where my character was meeting up with a friend of hers and they were having this witty banter, and I find banter really hard to write because although I can banter with like close friends and even sometimes with strangers and stuff, it's really hard for me to like find that line of too much, too little. Is this getting weird? Am I being nasty, or am I being kind? Am I being joking? Am I being vengeful? Like, I overthink like it's an Olympic sport and I'm training for the gold. So I ended up writing this amazing scene, and I was like almost done with it. I was like this close to being done with it. And I don't really know what I did. I was constantly backing up my work to a external hard drive. Please guys, back up your work, because that chapter is lost forever. I moved it and I pressed save when I had pressed paste, and it was a mess and I cried. And if you follow me on Instagram, you probably saw my story where I was literally in tears. And some of you were really, really kind and like trying to help me find this work that I had lost, but it was lost to the abyss forever. So it's gone and I'm really sad. So if you walk away from this video with anything, 1, write your book, and 2, please back it up. Please, 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 I'm asking you nicely. You don't want to lose your work. What I like to do is I like to go chapter by chapter. So if I do lose a chapter, it's only a chapter. So each chapter is a individual WordPerfect document. I do not use MS Word, I use WordPerfect, which probably none of you know what that is. But I just want to say I highly recommend going chapter by chapter, because if I had lost my whole book in that moment, I would have stopped. The world would never have seen this book, ever, because that would have crushed me. Like, just losing that chapter was bad enough. So yeah, definitely go chapter by chapter if you're working with like a Word document or whatever, so that you don't lose everything at once. And if your computer is prone to crashing, back it up on an external or on the drive. Like, you don't want to lose the work once you put that much effort into it. It is important for your sanity, okay? Trust me on this. So yeah, I think that's the end of the video. Congratulations on making it this far. I really hope that you are somewhat inspired to take that dream that you have and create a book from it, and to really pursue that dream, because honestly, like I said, I've been trying to write for the longest time, and I think having found a method that works for me, I haven't gotten into the editing. I always want to put that disclaimer, like, I haven't started editing this book, but I have finished the rough draft, which I am super proud of myself for, because that's the first time that I've ever managed to write like a full-blown rough draft of a whole novel. And I've got over 50,000 words already, which is, I think, amazing, because when I edit, things grow. Like, I know that's not entirely common, but me editing does not reduce the number of words, ever. Like, it's never been that way. From school days, I've always increased the number of words, and it's been a problem sometimes. But yeah, I think that's everything that I have to impart to you today. And I really hope that you learned a little something and that you can walk away from this inspired. I'll see you guys in the next video. Love you guys. Bye.